Life can be really tough sometimes. Imagine losing everything. Your home, your friends, all the things that make you feel secure. It's a nightmare scenario, but even in those darkest moments, you're not truly alone. There's a comforting truth that many people hold on to. God is always there. No matter how bad things get, you are never left with absolutely nothing because God's presence is constant and unwavering. Take a moment to think about David from the Bible. He went through some incredibly hard times, but he always found that God was with him. We often remember David for his victory over Goliath, a giant who seemed unbeatable. But what made this victory possible wasn't just David's bravery, it was his faith in God. Picture the scene. The Philistines on one hill, the Israelites on another, and a valley in between. Goliath, the giant warrior from the Philistine camp, challenged the Israelites to send a champion to fight him. If the Israelite champion won, the Philistines would serve the Israelites. If Goliath won, it would be the other way around. It seemed like a good way to avoid a full-scale battle, but there was one huge problem, literally. Goliath was a giant, towering over everyone, and no one dared to fight him. Day after day, for 40 days, Goliath taunted the Israelites, and they were terrified. Then, a young shepherd boy named David came to the camp to bring food to his brothers. He heard Goliath's challenge and couldn't believe his ears. Who is this Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? David asked. Despite his youth and inexperience, David volunteered to fight Goliath. King Saul was hesitant. David was just a boy, after all. But David insisted, saying, "The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine." Saul had no other options, so he agreed. He tried to outfit David with armor, but it didn't fit. David decided to face Goliath with just a sling and 5 stones, trusting that God would help him. On the battlefield, David and Goliath faced off. Goliath mocked David, but David stood firm. "You come against me with sword and spear," he said, "but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty." With a single stone from his sling, David struck Goliath on the forehead, and the giant fell. The Israelites were victorious, not because of David's strength, but because God was with him. David's faith didn't just help him defeat Goliath. Throughout his life, God's presence was a source of strength and guidance. Even when Saul, the king of Israel, became jealous of David and tried to kill him, David trusted in God. He didn't take revenge on Saul, even when he had the chance. Instead, he relied on God to protect and guide him. During the years that David was on the run from Saul, he wrote many psalms, expressing his trust in God. In Psalm 35, David cries out for God's help against his enemies and ends with praise for God's righteousness. Even in hiding, David knew that God was with him, just as he had been during the good times. One evening, David snuck into Saul's camp and found Saul sleeping, a spear by his head. David's men urged him to kill Saul and end his troubles, but David refused. He wouldn't harm Saul because Saul was the Lord's anointed king. Instead, David took Saul's spear and water jug as proof that he could have killed him, but chose not to. The next day, David called out to Saul, showing him the items and explaining why he had spared his life. Saul was moved by David's mercy and blessed him. Although Saul continued to pursue David for a while, God kept David safe, just as he had promised. David's story is a powerful reminder that even in our darkest hours, God's presence is a source of comfort and strength. When everything seems lost, faith can carry you through. Just like David, trusting in God can give you the courage to face your giants and overcome incredible challenges. Life will have its tough moments, but with God by your side, you are never truly alone. God's presence is a sign of hope, a light in the darkness guiding you through life's storms. David's life was full of troubles and victories. Again, despite Saul's attempts to kill him, David kept his faith. He didn't strike back, but trusted God to deal with the situation. That kind of trust isn't easy, but David knew that God was in control even when everything else was a mess. David wasn't perfect, far from it. The book of 2 Samuel, chapter 11, shows just how far he fell. He saw a woman named Bathsheba bathing, and even though he found out she was married, he couldn't shake his feelings for her. David ended up making decisions that led to adultery, and even arranged for Bathsheba's husband, Uriah, to be killed in battle. These actions were against everything God wanted, and they had serious consequences. God sent Nathan the prophet to confront David about his sin, and it wasn't a pretty scene. David realized the gravity of his actions and repented deeply. It was a tough moment for him. The baby that Bathsheba bore died, just as God had said through Nathan. This part of David's story is painful, but important. It shows that actions have consequences, and stepping away from God's path can lead to real heartache. But here's the thing, David turned back to God. He sought forgiveness and faced what he had done. That move back towards God is something we can all learn from. We all mess up sometimes in big ways, but like David, we can always turn back to God, ask for forgiveness, and work to fix things. And remember, no matter what we lose in life, be it our health, our job, or even people we love, we never lose God. He's always there, waiting for us to turn to Him, to trust Him. During David's toughest times, he wrote many psalms, pouring out his fears, his hopes, and his trust in God. Those psalms are like prayers that we can use too. They connect us to God, just like they connected David. Take Psalm 51, for instance. After everything that happened with Bathsheba, David wrote, "Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me." This verse isn't just beautiful, it's powerful. It's David's way of saying, I've messed up, but I want to change. Help me, God. We can use these words in our own lives when we need a fresh start. When life feels too much, like you're facing your own Goliath, or you're on the run from your own King Saul, remember David's faith. Remember how he faced giants, dealt with betrayal, and overcame his own failures, all by leaning on God. And when you slip up, don't be too hard on yourself. David's life shows us that everyone makes mistakes. What matters is how you handle them. Turn back to God, just like David did. Use his psalms to talk to God, letting those ancient prayers express what's in your heart. God is always ready to listen. He's always there to guide you through whatever comes your way. Just as David trusted God to steer his path right, we can do the same. So don't fear being alone or feeling lost. With God by your side, You're never truly alone, and you always have a way back. And remember, no setback, no mistake, no loss is too great. God's presence is a constant in your life, a source of strength and comfort through everything. Just hold on to that, especially during the times you feel like everything else is slipping away. Keep faith close and God closer. He walked with David through all his adventures and misadventures, and he'll walk with you too. Just reach out, talk to him, and let him guide you through each day. That's the key to weathering any storm, knowing you're not doing it alone,